And so we are going to have now Dr. Lucretia Carter-Berry is going to come and lay the framework to make sure we are all on the same page. Dr. Berry is the founder of Brownicity, an agency committed to making important, scholarly informed anti-racism education accessible, and the director of its online membership platform, which currently hosts over 12,000 enrollments. A former college professor, Lucretia authored What Lies Between Us, Fostering First Steps Toward Racial Healing, and Hues of You, an activity book for learning about the skin you are in. Lucretia is a curriculum specialist for Community School of Davidson, a contributor for Encourage.me, and a TEDx and Q Ideas speaker. She is married to Nathan. They have 3 daughters and 2 Aussie doodles. If you all will join me in welcoming to the stage Dr. Berry.
Hello. Oh, there it is. Yay. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. This is my 3rd time here. Let's see if I can get it right this time. They invited me back because I keep messing it up. So hopefully I'll get it right this time. Let's see. Am I using my clicker? Oh my gosh, this one is a little... Did it. Okay. So this is my family, also known as the Berry Patch. And yet, I know, aren't they precious? I think so too. I think I'll keep them, and they will keep me. Although last night they were telling me that I need to not yell at them, the girls. I don't yell at my husband, but the girls. So so that was an interesting conversation. But I think I'll keep them. So actually, we're going to journey with, this is us in Cuba, actually, a couple of years ago. It was a great time. And so they're going to journey with me as I talk with you this morning. And am I pointing here? Maybe I should, okay. So I'm going to tell you my story. Because again, you know, this is my 3rd time here, but I don't think I've actually told you very much about my background. So I'm going to take this morning a little time and get us all on the same page by sharing my story. So I grew up, was born in 1971, so I'm celebrating my 50th. That's right, turning 50 at the end of the month. Yeah! October 28th, end of the month. That's right. So born in 1971. So as you know, anybody knows your history a little bit, you know that so I grew up, of course, integrated, so after integration, but very much socially segregated because it takes a while for things to change. And so I went to school with white kids, and that's about it. So home, life, church, all of that was black. So essentially, I'm gonna cut to the chase, I never had experienced worshiping with white folks. So off I go to an HBCU when I graduated from high school, and once again, no experience worshiping with white folks at my historically black university, South Carolina State University. Go Bulldogs. Oh, that's what I'm talking about. That's right, girl. We are everywhere. Okay, so from my HBCU, I head to Iowa State University. Yes, where it's 96%, yeah. The point something white. I jokingly say that's where they make white people. That's where they make them. They come from Iowa. No, it's only white people. When my family visited me there, they were like, everybody's white. Even the people sweeping up the airport are white. See, black people get that. See? I was like, oh yeah, everybody is white. So anyway, they got a kick out of that. So everybody was white. But I managed to find what I considered an oasis in a historically black college ministry. So I became a part of this college ministry and absolutely loved it. For me, it was like, that was where I had my own like transformative growth, coming into my own and understanding who I am. as God's daughter, and like all the lights came on. Love this place. But shortly after being there, the pastor, well, and I will say, most of the kids or us young people who were there were from populations from cities like Detroit and Chicago, St. Louis, that again had similarly grown up socially segregated, never worshiped with white people, never had close relationships with white people. So we're having a ball in our little church, and then the pastor announces that we are going to no longer be a black church. We are going to become interracially one, which the acronym is BIO. BIO means life. B-I-O, become interracially one. So that meant we are going to worship with white folks. So nobody was happy about that. Yeah, including me. It was hot. But, and so I'm just being honest and being vulnerable, was not happy about that. And so then actually, yeah, like half the people left the church but I did not. I knew I was supposed to be there, but of course I was wrestling and arguing with God the entire time, or initially. But see, this is how God can do things and design healing in a way that I know only God did this. So at the very same time that the pastor is announcing that we're going to do this and we're having to step forward into this, and I am one of the main resistors, I'm sad to say. At the same time, I started my doctoral program, and my doctoral program started with a whole series of courses on anti-racism education. Now back then, that wasn't even heard of. I even had to ask, what is anti-racism education? But it started a whole series of courses on anti-racism education, including a field trip to post-apartheid South Africa. So this was right shortly after apartheid had ended in South Africa. So this whole time, this education is expanding me in all kinds of ways. So essentially, the formal instruction helped me gain a revelatory understanding of systemic injustice. The entire time, God is talking to me about what I am learning. And the education, and because I'm gaining understanding, I'm able to understand on a level that I couldn't have before that. So within this foundational understanding, God encouraged me and prompted healing in me in ways that I could not have understood, longed for, anticipated without this education, because I didn't know what I didn't know. Right? And I couldn't be ministered to on things that I didn't even understand or know. The education grew my capacity to engage in healing and also being able to create and manifest the vision that the pastor was sharing. So the education led to a personal transformation. So my inner healing, so the education led to my inner healing, which was the wellspring for me to be able to grow. So I went from being a resistor to one of the people running ahead of the pastor. Pastor, you're moving too slow. Come on, let's go. Okay, so then, oh, and here's a little fun fact. I don't have time to tell the whole story, but here's a fun fact. So out of all of that work, the church transformed really quickly. Lots of white people came, and I actually became best friends with one of those white guys and then married him later. So see there? Mm-hmm. There he is. That wasn't in my notes, but he's here, so I thought you might like to know that. So decades later, in 2015, when I was asked to help folks understand, like my friends understand, the schismatic racial climate, I created a curriculum that mirrored my own racial healing experience, which was education to revelation to transformation. So that's what lies between us is fostering first steps toward racial healing. It's designed by me, a professional educator who loves Jesus and who believes that we all can heal from the psychological, social, and structural wounds of racism and all injustices when we first fully understand them. So learning was good for me. Learning all of this stuff, learning the hard stuff, learning the history, learning the context, learning the patterns was good for me. It was essential. It's good for all of us. Learning fed my transformation of self and my ministry. So learning was good for me. There we go. But it's so ironic that currently the moral panic around critical race theory, is disguised as this is bad for our children, right? So, first of all, critical race theory is not being taught in our public schools, first and foremost, because it's too sophisticated. Like, I was not introduced to Crenshaw and Bell until I was getting my doctorate. Okay, so, I mean, I'm all for teaching kids on that level, but but most people, most teachers, most educators are not ready for that. And we know parents are not. Some parents are not ready for that. So it's sophisticated. And I am not coming to you as an apologist or an advocate for critical race theory. I'm just saying what's true. Like, the learning was a part of my healing. That's my truth. And critical race theory is not being taught in schools. So we have this created moral panic. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about critical race theory. It's essentially a lens. It shows us how race still matters after the Civil Rights Movement and the passing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. It helps us see pervasive racialized structures and how they continue to marginalize, oppress, and hurt people, all people. And it helps us, now listen to this, it helps us discern patterns, remember that word. It helps us discern patterns that we just can't see directly, because we don't live like, for 400 years and everywhere for 400 years, right? So we can't discern the patterns. Okay, so we cannot fear learning. Learning is essentially understanding acquired through experience, study, or being taught. So if we're gonna fear learning, then don't go to medical school. Right? Don't go to business school, right? We cannot fear data. Data keeps us away from anecdotes, okay? Helps us see what the world is actually like versus what we think it's like. So, you've heard, well, my friend said that, this doesn't exist anymore. But the data is showing that it does. Okay, so yes, we cannot fear data. And we cannot fear theory. Theory helps us see aspects of the world that we would otherwise not see or ignore. Because again, we don't live for 400 years and we are not everywhere all the time. So theory helps us break through our limited lens and see what we might not otherwise see. Theory challenges mindsets. Okay, but slide. Maybe I should just say slide. I don't think I'm doing this right. Here we go. But we are not supposed to challenge our mindsets. Correct? Incorrect. I think every year I bring the same scripture. Romans 12:2. Now remember, what word did I tell you to remember? Y'all, patterns. There you go, you got it. So let's read Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the of this world. Somebody knew already. But be transformed by the renewing of your what? And what theory helps us change our mindsets. Okay. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. Learning helps us. Learning helped me. Learning helps us, and we cannot be afraid to renew our minds. We have to renew our minds. It was in my courses where I understood how structures and systems shape us. Right? Yeah. We are not just exist on our own, in and of ourselves. And of course, neuroplasticians, so for the people who don't want to have anything to do with the Bible, neuroplasticians say that the brain can rewire. The brain can rewire. Learning, the brain can rewire. Okay, slide. I'm not even going to try. There we go. All right. So here is, I want to share this definition or this description of justice that I actually got from the Bible Project. So we humans are made in the image of God and have the right to be treated with dignity and fairness, no matter who we are, no matter who you are. As such, justice maintains right relationships between people, treating others as the image of God. Justice is a radical, selfless way of life. Justice, more than it is retributive, you know what I'm trying to say, because that sounds the way we think, right? But more than that, it is described in the Bible, and in its true origin, justice is restorative. So it involves seeking out, that means you got to get up out of your comfort zone, out of your segregated suburbs, seeking out vulnerable people who are being taken advantage of and helping them. Justice involves advocating for the vulnerable and changing social structures. It doesn't say changing people. It doesn't say canceling people. It doesn't say hitting people over the head with a 2x4 or a 10x10 or whatever. It says advocating for the vulnerable and changing social structures to prevent injustice. Okay, so in his book, Jesus and the Disheartened, Howard Thurman asks, why is it that Christianity seems impotent to deal radically and therefore effectively with the issues of discrimination and injustice on the basis of race, religion, and national origin? Now, when I first read that, I'm gonna be honest, I felt some kind of way. Because I was like, what Christianity are you talking about? Because the civil rights movement was largely organized in what? Y'all are on it this morning. Black churches. So somehow, somebody's Christianity is not impotent. Somebody's Christianity is very potent, and very powerful. And maybe some people need to go sit and learn with the people, or from the people, whose Christianity is potent and powerful and is dealing with justice. Now, I can't talk about y'all's churches because I don't know y'all's churches. I know the church I grew up in was very justice-oriented, was very much focused on the vulnerable people. So I get it. I know who he's talking about, but that's not my experience. So that means that we have an opportunity. We have an opportunity to learn, to grow. Some people have been doing this for a while, and we can learn and grow from those people. I'm going to read a few things about civil rights movement in the black churches. The reliance on nonviolence was both spiritual and strategic. It resonated with the tradition of the black churches. The Montgomery Improvement Association, formed by Ralph Abernathy, Nixon, Robinson, King, and others, organized the movement through a multitude of black churches and organizations. So we are not, as a faith, impotent and powerless. Okay, we know how to organize. Okay, we essentially need to continue in the tradition of the black churches who helped and were essential to the civil rights movement. This is not something that's strange for us. I wish I would have, like, how am I doing on time? Okay, Martin Luther King Jr. reminded us that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. That's right. So before I leave you, I just want to encourage you to continue in the tradition of the Black church. Maybe not all the traditions, because no one is perfect, but in terms of being able, thank you, in terms of being able to be organized, in terms of being action-oriented, in terms of caring for the vulnerable, seeking the vulnerable, advocating for justice. We can do this. We are not an impotent and powerless and clueless. I want to encourage you to be creative. I mean, essentially, we all are endowed with divine intelligence, right? We are all endowed with divine intelligence. We are extensions of the Creator. So we don't have to remain in these boxes and these systems and these structures that have informed us. We can break out of those. Essentially within, we have the power to break out of those, to do things differently, to use our imaginations. That's a gift from God. And number 3, we need to support our educators and support education, because currently teaching and learning about injustice and racism and anti-racism education is under attack. And they've just taken all, and when I say they, let me name them, but the right-wing conservative groups who essentially would like things to remain, like in their perspective, justice looks differently. Justice is just for them, not for anybody else. But the fear is that they will lose something, and so then there is this resistance, of course. And so currently, they've just organized several campaigns against educators. And what is happening, and I get it, I get their concerns of quote unquote indoctrination. That's problematic on so many levels, and I don't have time to go into all of that. But as we speak, Lieutenant Governor Mark Robinson has assembled a task force that invites people to report alleged indoctrination. So what happens if you ask a question, if you seek something, then that's what your focus is on. And so then people are attacking teachers, and people are reporting teachers. I am an educator who, I get alerts from the people who care about me when my name and when my organization is being kind of dragged through the mud on these private social media groups. Teachers are losing their jobs. Teachers are being stressed and stretched. So support your educators. If there are things that are going on in classrooms that parents maybe you don't like and maybe you consider indoctrination, the answer isn't to shut down progress. The answer is maybe teachers need more support. Maybe they need more teacher education. So I would encourage you all to organize, to support your educators, support teachers, because we are people. And with that, I did want to share really quickly about, as I went into this school year over the summer, the whole moral panic and critical race theory was so ridiculous and out of hand. And again, this is not fair. Like, I'm not out here blowing up stuff and causing trouble. But people come to me, and I have to take the time that I don't get paid for, to address this stuff. So essentially, I thought, no high schooler, as I teach a course at a high school called Anti-Racism 101, no high schooler is going to sign up for my course. So I was like, that's going to be interesting. Nobody's going to sign up. Well, what has happened with all of the stirring is it has stirred so much interest that not only did I have students sign up for my course, I had so many students sign up for my course that I'm actually teaching 2 sections. That has never happened before. I know, right? And these students, I'm gonna let y'all clap for them, and then I'm gonna tell them that y'all clap for them. These students are the most leaned in people I have ever taught. in all my years of doing this. I mean, they have questions, they talk, it blows me away. So I get to do this, and I feel privileged and honored that they call me their teacher. I told them that before, and they looked at me like, okay, weirdo, just stop being weird. But I'm so grateful to be able to stand before them and that they have come to learn. But we want to see more of that. And these are the stories that our officials should be collecting. They should be collecting the stories of the thousands and thousands of people that my organization and other people have been able to teach and help their lives transform. Nobody has asked me about my story. Let me tell my story. I'm gonna write it in a book. Yeah, I am. I'm gonna tell my story, how this education transformed me and how I have been able to help transform whatever community that I am a part of. Slide. So, moving on. So I want to encourage you all to check out brownicity.com. That's the name of the organization. Brownicity was launched in 2015 with the purpose of making importantly scholarly informed anti-racist education accessible. And that's because back then it was not. Now, in the years, there have been so many good resources that have been written and that are available. However, we continue to create courses and create learning experiences. Slide. Currently, within our learning community, we have over 22 courses for adults and kids. So how about if your school doesn't want to teach this, we have it here. So this is what I mean, be creative, okay? Our mission is to foster education designed to create a shared understanding of race and racism, or all injustices, to inspire a culture of true belonging and justice for all. Slide. Okay, and so here's my big ask, another big ask, is that I have an activity book coming out in January. And essentially this activity book came about because I was going into libraries and parents groups and schools, and I would get to talk to the kids and read to the kids and give them language, and the kids would it was like, they were like, oh, finally someone is giving us permission to talk about things we've observed, but everybody's been quiet about it or told us that we don't talk about that and that we are all equal. And so the kids would want to talk about it, but the adults were a little intimidated, which I totally understand. So then I essentially pulled together, I was inspired by the conversations that the kids wanted to have and that silence of the adults, and so I created an activity book to help foster learning and to help foster conversations. So do me a favor and pre-order it now. If you go to brownicity.com, it's called Hues of You. And pre-order that today. That will be a way of supporting an educator. We must vote with our dollars. Okay, and so as I close, last slide, I want to read this scripture from Micah 6 and 8. He has shown you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justly, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with our God. And so with every Brownicity course, learning experience, we always close with this intention and this blessing. So if you know it, say it with me. May we be people of peace with voices of hope doing the hard work of love. Thank you so much. Enjoy the conference today.
We have some questions. Thank you so much, Lucretia. We have some fiery questions for you, and we have about 5 minutes to answer them, and they're good.
Okay.
They're good. All right, so let's jump right in. Let's jump right in. The first one, how do you address the desire to skip over the hard but necessary and beautiful work on learning and immediately moving to outreach and serving?
Okay, can you say the beginning of it again?
How do you address the desire to skip over the hard work of learning and immediately move to outreach and serving?
So my favorite metaphor is a gardening or a seed, right? And it takes a while for us to grow. So what happens when you want to just jump right into action without learning is that here you are, a tree, and you're wanting to show you have fruit, but you don't. And so it's like, think of a tree with like the fruit that you glued and stapled to it, okay? So then when it's time to actually bear that fruit, or, you know, the wind blows, that tree's gonna fall over, it has no roots, or that tree essentially can't do what it is trying to do because it doesn't have the roots. And so you think about, again, a seed, which has divine intelligence, right? You put it in the soil, which has divine intelligence. That's the right growth conditions. Let's call that learning. And so together, the seed and the soil work together to produce the roots, right? And the, what's that called when it starts to come up? The sprout. There we go, we'll call it that. The sprout that comes up. So then over time, with learning, with introspection, with reflection, with working on yourself, you grow the roots, you grow the substance, and then you actually produce the fruit that then you walk out and do the action. Because that's how people suffer from social justice fatigue, right? Because
they haven't done the learning.
They don't know. And they don't have roots.
Yeah,
so when
no
the wind is blowing, they just fall right on over. So I know people, we want to move so quickly because you're like, this has gone on long enough. You are so right. But if you have not been in this, like you didn't maybe grow up being aware, or you haven't had at least 4 years, you have to take time to get your roots, to be saturated, to grow the substance, to allow healing to happen in you, so that when you go out and interact with other people and you're in the community, then you are functioning from like a healed place, a strong place, and you're not performing.
That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. Okay, next question. There's a thought that we're going to rectify racism. If we're going to rectify racism, it's up to white women to do this first with their children.
Okay.
Do you think that's true? I've seen it on Twitter. Have y'all seen that on Twitter? Like there's a whole meme that's like, if we're gonna rectify racism, white women, it's up to you to do it with your children at home. What do you think about this thought?
Okay, so I just have
I mean, Twitter will keep you honest. I mean, it'll put stuff out there, even if it's not true. What do you think?
Gosh, I need to do a whole class about that.
Come on, Doc.
Okay, but essentially, so I'm an educator. So even though I am I'm teaching, race and anti-racism, honestly, I am not I'm not functioning within the racial categories, within the structure of the racial categories. I know some people do it that way. I do not. I function, or I look at people on, I'm just gonna say like grade levels, I'll just use that metaphor.
That's good.
Yeah, so some people are in kindergarten, so you have people of color. You have black people in kindergarten too.
Yes, you do.
You have Latin people, people in kindergarten. You have white people in kindergarten. You have some white people that are in graduate school. Take my husband, for example. Sometimes he points out stuff that I can't even see because I'm just so used to the racism, you see. So for me, I think that's how I look at it. So regardless of where you are, okay, everybody has to engage, right?
That's good.
So I understand what they're saying, like, okay, come on, white women, do this at home with your kids. But I don't think it's exclusively like a white thing. I think it's exclusively like, if you haven't started this learning journey, if you haven't started the journey, maybe you're like, the journey starts right here. I'm pointing with my toe, and you're still back here. Like we all gotta start this journey, and you're gonna be. We're all gonna be in different places, and I'm just not of that. Like that's not my pedagogy.
Got it.
So it's kind of hard for me to answer.
Yeah.
But I get it.
Okay.
I get it. It takes all of us.
It takes all of us.
All of us moving.
That's good.
Moving up.
That's good. It takes all of us.
1 minute. Okay.
Is it worth engaging in the CRT debate, or do you think that it is just a distraction?
Right.
Or do
I'm already
you think?
answering. Go ahead.
Or do you think that it is just a distraction from regular relationship building, structure, changing work?
Distraction, easily. It's just the latest boogeyman, y'all. Like, it's critical. You could not have told me that it was going to be critical race theory. I mean, I know the patterns. See, we got to learn the patterns. So there's always a pattern of resistance. And so before this, it was identity politics. And what was hilarious is like, the people who actually engage in identity politics were the ones who were accusing other people of that, like, it's so ridiculous. And then before that, it's like, it's communism or Marxism. Like, so there's always gonna be this resistance. And so just, again, you learn the patterns. Like my high school students, I teach them that, patterns. So they predict like, okay, this happened, so now this is gonna happen. Very good, young Jedi. Yeah.
Stop arguing. Stop arguing over the patterns. Stop arguing.
And don't use your energy. This is what I do. I use my energy to water the gardens that people want to water. I don't use my energy to go put out the fires.
Yes.
You know, that's, yeah. And then I help people. I have had to help people who are like being beat down, leaders who are being beat down by the critical race theory, moral panic people who, you know. So I'm like, I'll help encourage those leaders, but I'm not going to go over here and argue. And plus, read it. Like, if you do, see, all the people are published. They're academics, they're published, so just read it. Then,
all right, one last question, because it's about your books, we gotta ask.
Oh, okay.
Are your books Christian-oriented, faith-based, or could they be used with people that are not interested in Christianity?
Okay, so here's the thing. What Lies Between Us, that book was designed for churches. But because I was also immersed, and I felt fortunate to be immersed in friendships where people were atheists and agnostics, and they said, Lucretia, do not leave us out of this work. And I was like, okay. Now, the way that the book is written, it is not proselytizing, but because I work in schools and companies, I created Foundations. Foundations is not a book, it's an online course. So it's the exact same as What Lies Between Us. Educationally, it just doesn't have scripture in it. So again, in our learning community is for anybody who wants to learn. And then Hues of You, of course, is designed by a Christian, but I wanted it to be able to go into schools and places. And so you will find that the content is very much inspiring, but that doesn't have scripture in it.
That's good. Can we give Dr. Berry a hand?
Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Lucretia, for being here.